You've probably heard the idea that the 10 Commandments can be divided up into these are the commandments of showing you how to love God, and these are the ones showing you how to love your neighbor. And I think that, there's some truth in that. I think all of the commandments show us how to love each other and how to love God. But yeah, does seem to be a pattern where the first half are talking about how you love God, and the second half is talking about how you love each other. I'd like to point out how each of these really does point to how do you love God, because some of them aren't real clear, like don't steal. That's obvious how it shows you how to love your neighbor, but not so much how do you love God. The Sabbath, since I already started talking about that one, I'll start with that. And most people say, well, we keep the Sabbath because, that's the day we're going to spend with God. He set an appointment for us. And, obviously if he sets a date, he wants to spend some time with us, we should honor that. And that's all true. No argument with that at all. But it goes beyond that. First, it acknowledges God as our creator. He said, keep the Sabbath day because on the seventh day I rested. I worked 6 days and now I'm resting here. So doing that acknowledges God as our creator. He created all of us on the sixth day through Adam. It also shows how we are supposed to emulate God, that we are his image. And to honor that, we do what he did. Just like, Paul told I can't remember which letter it was in, but he said, you emulate me as I emulate Christ. Well, that's what we're supposed to do. We are supposed to become more like the Son of God. We're not going to become gods. We're not going to become the Son of God and, like of his stature or power or authority, but we're supposed to be like him. We were created in God's image. So we're supposed to behave like it. God worked 6 days and rested one day. We honor that image by working 6 days and resting one. And it goes further than that. Here God says that you were slaves in Egypt and I set you free. Therefore you take a day off. And everybody takes this day off. And partly that's so that everybody has the same day off. So you can all gather in God's name. You guarantee that your servants have the same day off as their family so they can spend time with their family. You and your family get to spend time together. But it also acknowledges God as our Savior. God said, I set you free. You were slaves in Egypt. Now you get a time off. And you acknowledge that I'm the one who set you free by taking this day off. We don't get to pick our own, even though we're not slaves anymore. We don't get to say, well, my Sabbath is on Sunday or Monday. No, God set that day because he's the one who set us free. And to reject that Sabbath day that's almost as bad as saying I'm rejecting God. God is not my Savior. I don't have to acknowledge his role in my salvation. I did this by working, and so I'm going to keep working to maintain my freedom. But we don't have any freedom except what God gave us. So God said take a day off. We take a day off because he's the one who set us free in the first place. Going back to the beginning of the list, I am Yahweh your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, and you shall have no other gods before me. That one seems pretty obvious. I mean, we love God, so we put him first. We belong to him. We acknowledge that. You shall not make for yourself a carved image or any likeness of anything in heaven above or on the earth beneath or in the water. Because we belong to God and he has put his spirit in us, we don't mix that with pagan worship. We were studying James Thursday night, and James talks about, don't be friends with the world because God is jealous of the spirit that he has put in you. And he was going back to Exodus 32. That's where God says, don't make covenants with these pagan people around you because they're going to drag you into idol worship, and I'm a jealous God. He's saying he's not going to share space in his people with these other spirits. Because we have God's spirit inside of us, he can't tolerate these other spirits there too. So pick one side or the other.
I like how you were saying that Sabbath is like in the image of God, and he starts expanding on idol worship before he gets to Sabbath. And a lot of times, and he makes it clear that it's the seventh day where a lot of times we make Sabbath in our image, and we're like, oh, I can, people have their excuses what Sabbath is. But it's like, in a way, it's idol worship,
Yeah. Making yourself the authority.
Yeah.
Or some other human authority.
Yeah, and who are we to make anything holy other than what God has made holy? So it's like there's no other day is set aside and made holy, despite our theology.
Yeah.
Our feelings about it.
Yeah, our feelings.
The next one, third command, don't take the name of Yahweh your God in vain. And this has, people debate about what exactly this means. Is this, saying his name in anger? Is that taking his name in vain? Well, in a way, even though God is not God's name, it's a title, it's a generic word that we use for all spiritual beings. But his name is not necessarily the tetragrammaton, Yahweh or Yahuwah or Yehovah, however you want to pronounce it. That's not really his name. That's a stand-in for his name, because his name is the one who is. He is self-existent. There's nobody before him, nobody after him. Everything exists because he exists. And so his name is everything about him, his character, his authority, his power.
I am.
Yeah. And so if we're going around saying, we are God's people, we are made in his image, and then we go and behave in ways that bring shame on that image, we are taking God's name in vain. If we say, God said that the Sabbath is moved from Saturday to Sunday, or God said Sabbath doesn't matter anymore, we are taking his name in vain because we are attributing things to him that he never said. Another way to take this, to interpret this phrase, taking his name in vain, can be to diminish his name, to make his name of no weight, no effect. So anything that we do that diminishes his reputation or authority in the world, or the way that people see him, that's taking his name in vain. So those are all the obvious ones. Then we get to honor your father and mother. How does this honor God? Well, first, we are honoring other people who are made in God's image. And this is obviously going to carry over into don't murder. But also, God set up a way that the world works. He created Adam and Eve, and he created them to be the parents of all mankind. Mm-hmm. That's even Eve's name. She's the mother of all people, so she was called Eve. By honoring our parents, we are honoring God's hierarchy in the world, saying this is how the world is supposed to work. God knows what's best for us. So we honor him by honoring our parents. And on another level, it honors our source. The first 5 commandments are of a type where Rabbi Foreman from Aleph Beta puts it, these are vertical commandments. They go up and down the spiritual hierarchy. So the first 4 are between us and God. The 5th one is between us and our parents, which is still up the spiritual chain. So we obey and honor our parents because they created us, just like God created us. Not quite the same way, but analogous. The next commandment is do not murder. Well, don't destroy God's image, because God created life and he said that we're supposed to respect it. So the only time that we are to take human life is as punishment for crime or in war. And these are times where God commanded it, where he said, this person has defiled my image, so you have to take that image from him. That is essentially what capital punishment is. So don't murder and execute somebody for murdering are both a way of honoring God's image in people. You shall not commit adultery. It's analogous to idolatry. Our marriage is it's a metaphor of God's relationship with his people. And so by respecting marriage, we also respect that relationship. Don't steal. Well, God has assigned people property. I would say that nobody really owns anything in the sense that you have an absolute right to do whatever you want with it. It all belongs to God. Everything that we could ever have, ever buy, it actually belongs to God. But that means God has delegated us authority over things. And if you are stealing things from other people who own it rightfully, you are ignoring God's decision to delegate that property to that person. So it's not just you're stealing from the other person, you're stealing from God. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. If you're lying about somebody who bears God's image, you are lying about God. In James, James chapter 4, right around verse 10 and 11, I think it's 10 through 12, he talks about how if you are slandering people in your community, especially your fellowship, you are making yourself a judge of the law, because the law says who's guilty and who's not. You don't get to do that without following the pattern that God laid out in the law. There's a procedure for this. If somebody has committed a crime, you take it to your elders and you say, this person has committed a crime. He's done harm to this person. I saw it. They investigate. They bring witnesses. There's a process for this. And if you go around that process and you start gossiping about somebody, even if you know it's true, and you start telling people, this person did this, that I know that this person, here's their real motives, any of this kind of stuff, you are going around God's law and essentially saying God's law isn't good enough. God didn't know what he was doing when he said, this is the way we're supposed to handle it. So don't bear false witness against your neighbor means respect the way that God said we are to behave. Respect God. And then don't covet your neighbor's wife. Don't desire your neighbor's house, his field, his male servant or female servant. It's the same as don't steal, except God is saying don't even dream about it. Now, we're all going to have thoughts that just come to our heads and say, wow, that guy has a nice car. That's not the same as saying, I want to take that guy's car. In plotting, how can I take it? How can I manipulate things so that I can get that guy's car? Rabbi Foreman says that this is akin to saying, I want to be that person. I want to take his life by taking his place in society, including all the stuff that's his house, his wife, his car, all this stuff.
Which is also essentially rejecting our own identity and who God created us to be. So we're rejecting God's image yet again. We're rejecting God.
Yeah.
And what he says we are, who he says we are.
Yeah, and this goes all the way back to the first commandment, that I am your God.
I get to tell you who you are.
Yeah, I get to tell you who you are. Don't tell me who I am. You can't covet God's identity by saying, I'm going to be God and I'm going to make my own rules. You can't covet your neighbor's identity by saying, I want his stuff. You can say, I want a property like that, or I'd like to buy his property. You can do that.
And the idea that like Yeshua got rid of these laws is crazy, because he actually expanded on it and made it more difficult. Like, not only are you not supposed to commit adultery, but if you even think about lusting after that man's wife, you've already committed adultery.
It's in your heart.
Or even murder. Not when we think of physical murder, he's like, it's in your heart. You're already guilty of murder, So he's like, if anything, he made it harder. It's like, how did he get away with these things if he just put us in check, completely in check,
Well, it's interesting because the opposite of almost every one of these things, in terms of how you could actually avoid that, is praising God and thanking God for what you have, thanking God for gratitude can be a big part of that. But it really is when somebody else has something so amazing, so beautiful, or whatever, to be like, bless God, awesome for them. And culturally, we don't really see a lot of that. We're kind of culturally taught to covet, want the stuff all these people have. That's a good thing, right? But in fact, it's the better thing is to be rooting for each other, encouraging each other, celebrating for each other what God has given us, but also celebrating and receiving what God has, what he's given others, but receiving and celebrating what we've been given with gratitude, and not being I don't have as much as the next guy, or I don't have what that other guy has. It's definitely, it's not like it's an easy thing, depending on how we've been raised, but yeah, it's it is kind of the antidote to all of this stuff. It's recognizing God, acknowledging God, thanking God.
One of the objections you'll always get when you talk about how you're keeping God's commandments is, well, Yeshua broke it down to just 2 commandments now. Love God and love your neighbor. That's all we have to do. love is the fulfillment of the law. It's like, well, I can take you through all 613 commandments. I don't think they're really 613, but I can take you through every single one of them and show you how this is love for God or your neighbor. So why aren't you doing them?